The documentaries, fictional stories, and poems on this channel contain mature themes including psychological horror, violence, death, self-harm, mental health crises, and other disturbing subject matter. If you're sensitive to dark content, this may not be for you. Listener discretion is strongly advised. Welcome, my fearless few. I am the Howlerist. In this episode, we descend into a collision of two unfolding crises on Australian soil: a rodent plague of biblical proportions, and a virus that has a 38% chance of killing you with no cure. If you like my dark content, why not like, subscribe, and join the pack? A word of caution before we begin. As you can see, I am a wolf, not a medical expert. I have hunted deep into the public record for the facts in this story, and I am presenting exactly what I found. This video is for educational, journalistic, and creative purposes only. Do not rely on it for medical advice. Always seek guidance from qualified health professionals regarding public health matters. The Silence Beneath the Plague. Part 1. The Ground Beneath Your Feet. Somewhere in the Western Australian wheat belt, a farmer walks into a paddock. He sowed this field 4 days ago, and nothing has come up. He kneels down and digs into the soil with his fingers along the drill line where the seeder passed. The seed is gone. Every single one. Western Australia is one of the world's most important grain-producing regions. In 2025, the state harvested a record 27 million tons of grain. A season so abundant it left a legacy in every paddock of spilled grain, crop residue, and volunteer canola seedlings scattered across the ground. A continuous buffet. What followed was predictable to anyone who understood what was living in the soil beneath those fields. A mouse plague is not a pest problem. It is a biological event of a different order entirely. Normal summer mouse populations in the WA wheat belt sit at between 5 and 10 animals per hectare. Economic damage begins at 200 per hectare, and a plague is officially declared at 800 to 1,000. In May 2026, CSIRO researcher Steve Henry, one of Australia's foremost experts on mouse behavior, reviewed field reports spanning from Geraldton to Esperance. Some paddocks were recording between 3 and 4,000 burrows per hectare, equating to 6 to 8,000 mice. In his own words, "It is about as bad as you could ever expect to see." The trigger came from above. Ex-tropical cyclone Mitchell brought hailstorms that knocked grain to the ground across parts of WA in late 2025, creating an immediate food source. Then, ex-tropical cyclone Narelle compounded the damage with further rain events in March 2026. By the time autumn seeding arrived, the mouse population was already well beyond the point where standard control measures could function. There was a structural factor too. Modern no-till farming, which delivers clear benefits for soil health, moisture retention, and carbon sequestration, also leaves stubble on the ground year-round, providing permanent shelter, permanent cover, and permanent food. The mice did not cause this condition. We created it for them. At 8,000 mice per hectare, the destruction is total, and it does not wait for the crop to grow. Mice follow the drill lines of the seeder through the soil, digging up buried grain before it has the chance to germinate. As seedlings emerge, they graze them to the ground overnight, leaving bare, circular patches across paddocks that farmers have begun calling craters. As plants mature, mice chew through the base of stems, collapsing them so the grain head falls to the ground. Unreachable by a harvester, but perfectly positioned for the mice. At every stage of growth, and at every hour of the day and night, the field does not stand a chance. CSIRO issued a formal warning in March 2026, and the Grains Research and Development Corporation urged WA grain growers to act before seeding. Liberal Senator Slade Brockman warned that every day without access to more effective control tools compounded the economic impact across regional communities. Potential losses are estimated in the billions of dollars, including exports to Southeast Asia, a critical market for Australian grain producers, already under pressure from fuel and fertilizer shortages caused by the war in the Middle East. The mice are not only in the paddocks, they are everywhere. CSIRO's Steve Henry described it plainly. You open up your pantry to get food, the mice are there. You go to get clothes out, the mice are in your clothes. Worst of all, they're running across your bed at night while you're trying to sleep. The mice do not get sick. This is important. Remember this. Part 2. The Ship. On the 2nd of May, 2026, the World Health Organization received notification from the United Kingdom's National IHR Focal Point that a cluster of severe acute respiratory illness had been identified aboard the MV Hondius, a Dutch-flagged cruise ship carrying approximately 150 passengers and crew from 23 countries. 2 passengers had already died, and 1 was critically ill. By the 8th of May, the WHO had confirmed 8 cases and 3 deaths, a case fatality ratio of 38%. All 6 laboratory-confirmed cases were identified as the same virus, Andes virus. Andes virus is a member of the hantavirus family, a group of viruses found on every inhabited continent, carried by rodents which shed the virus in their urine, feces, and saliva without ever becoming sick themselves. Of the more than 50 known hantavirus species, Andes virus holds a unique distinction. It is the only hantavirus known to spread between humans. Transmission occurs through close and prolonged contact, and the virus may be airborne. The WHO confirmed that spread aboard the MV Hondius was at least partially attributed to human-to-human transmission. The working hypothesis of investigators is that the index case, patient 0, acquired the infection prior to boarding through environmental exposure during activities conducted in Argentina, where hantavirus is endemic. Living in the rodents there, carried silently, as it always has been. By the 12th of May, the European Center for Disease Prevention and Control had recorded 11 cases, 9 confirmed and 2 probable, and 3 people were dead. The CDC of the United States classified the outbreak as a Level 3 emergency response. Passengers had been evacuated to 6 European countries: Canada, South Africa, and the United States. each nation managing their returning citizens according to their own biosecurity protocols. Australia made its decision. Bring them home. Part 3. The decision. 4 Australian citizens, 1 permanent resident, and 1 New Zealand citizen were among the last passengers to leave the MV Hondius. The Australian government announced they would be flown to RAAF Base Pearce on the outskirts of Perth, Western Australia, and transported directly to the BULLSBROOK Centre for National Resilience. This is a purpose-built quarantine facility 48 kilometers from Perth's CBD, where they would remain in isolation for a minimum of 3 weeks. The Australian Centre for Disease Control confirmed that none of the passengers being repatriated were displaying symptoms at the time of their return. WA Chief Health Officer Dr. Claire Hupatz reassured the community. This is a very rare disease with human-to-human transmission, rarer still. Federal Health Minister Mark Butler acknowledged one further detail on the public record. The potential incubation period for hantavirus is 42 days. The mandated quarantine period is 21 days. He said further advice would be sought from chief health officers for arrangements beyond the initial 3 weeks. The BULLSBROOK Centre for National Resilience cost $1.37 billion to build at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, and has been referred to in Western Australian politics as a white elephant. It was designed to minimize cross-contamination concerns that had plagued hotel quarantine systems during that period. Each apartment features its own open-air entrance and staircase, customized ventilation systems, centralized food and laundry services, capacity for 500 people, and on-site medical facilities. It was completed and handed to the WA government in October 2022, by which time mandatory COVID quarantine had already been abolished, and the facility has been largely dormant ever since. The staff managing the quarantine are being flown in from the National Critical Care and Trauma Response Centre in Darwin, a unit established after the 2002 Bali bombings and experienced in high-consequence infectious disease management. UNSW epidemiologist Professor Raina McIntyre confirmed on the record that staff would be upskilling themselves on hantavirus, stating, "It's not something we see in Australia, so clinicians aren't familiar with how it presents and how to manage it, and so on." The passengers arrived on the 15th of May 2026. The staff were still learning about the virus when they did. COVID-19 is a droplet-transmitted respiratory virus. Hantavirus does not travel in droplets. It travels in dust, specifically the aerosolized particles of dried rodent urine, feces, saliva, and nesting material that become airborne when disturbed during cleaning, during farming, or during any activity that agitates dry contaminated material in an enclosed space. The CDC and the World Organization for Animal Health both classify hantavirus laboratory work as requiring Biosafety Level 4 containment, the highest classification that exists. Australia has one Biosafety Level 4 facility. It is the Australian Centre for Disease Preparedness in Geelong, Victoria. The passengers from the MV Hondius are not there. They are at BULLSBROOK. The BULLSBROOK Centre for National Resilience was not built to Biosafety Level 4 specification. It was built for a different virus in a different time. under different assumptions. If a person inside that facility carries the Andes virus, their biological material, urine, saliva, and excreta will dry on surfaces, on laundry, in the plumbing, and in the waste system. The facility operates centralized laundry services. Staff enter and exit each day. They go home. And outside the gates of that facility, the open country begins. Before we reach the landscape, there is one more layer of the plague's biological threat that must be stated. The mice are not only destroying the grain, they are already making people sick. Leptospirosis is a bacterial infection spread through mouse urine, contaminating soil, water, crops, and surfaces. It enters the human body through cuts in the skin, or the mucous membranes of the eyes, nose, and mouth, and left untreated, it can cause kidney failure, liver damage, and meningitis. During the 2021 New South Wales mouse plague, smaller in scale than the current WA outbreak, there were 94 officially notified cases of leptospirosis, against an average of 21 cases per year over the previous decade. That is more than 4 times the normal rate, directly coinciding with the plague. Lymphocytic choriomeningitis virus, known as LCMV, was identified in one farmer in western NSW during the same plague, and a further cluster of 8 cases appeared in southeast Queensland. These were the first ever recorded cases of LCMV in those regions. First ever, during a mouse plague. The 2026 WA outbreak is already being described as worse than 2021, and the health surveillance data from this plague has not yet been released. Part 4. The landscape. BULLSBROOK sits at the northern edge of the Perth metropolitan area, and beyond it, stretching hundreds of kilometers to the north and east, lies the WA wheat belt. The same wheat belt currently recording mouse populations of up to 8,000 animals per hectare. Billions of mice in the paddocks, in the farm sheds, in the walls of houses, and under the floors of the machinery that harvests the grain. Australia is home to more than 60 species of native rodents found nowhere else on Earth. Mitchell's hopping mouse forages in the WA wheat belt, a landscape now carpeted by the plague. Of Australia's known hopping mouse species, half have already become extinct since European colonization. They have no immunity to introduced diseases and no evolutionary history with the pathogens that arrived with the house mouse. They share the same ground. CSIRO has confirmed that hantavirus antibodies have been detected in some Australian rodents, suggesting related viruses are likely present at low levels in the local ecosystem. In 2017, a novel hantavirus named Robina virus was identified in the brain of an Australian black-flying fox. Researchers noted at the time that previous surveillance had already detected hantavirus antibodies in Australian rodents, without ever identifying the responsible virus. Something was already here. We did not know what it was, and we still do not know what it is. Hantaviruses have been detected in more than 100 species of mammals, including foxes, bats, and birds. The World Organization for Animal Health has confirmed that hantaviral nucleic acid has been found in carnivores, and that shared habitat and ingestion of infected prey are the identified mechanisms. Every bird of prey flying over the WA wheat belt right now is eating mice. Every fox moving through those paddocks at night is eating mice. Every feral cat, They do not get sick. The virus moves through them silently. Australia's flying foxes are among the most mobile mammals on the continent. Tracking studies conducted by Western Sydney University found that individual flying foxes travel between 1,400 and 6,000 kilometers per year. In a single night, a flying fox can cover 120 kilometers. They forage on farms in those paddocks alongside the mice. They carry their own hantavirus strain, identified, confirmed, and named. And every night they fly. Hantaviruses do not kill their rodent hosts. This is the biological accommodation that has evolved over millions of years. The virus suppresses the rodent immune system's inflammatory response, so the rodent never becomes ill. And the animal sheds viral particles continuously in every drop of urine, in every fragment of dried feces, and in every breath of expelled saliva. For life, a perfectly healthy mouse carrying a potentially fatal virus, indistinguishable from any other mouse. You cannot tell by looking at them. You cannot tell by trapping them. You would not know. The detection lag for hantavirus entering a new animal population is not measured in days or weeks, but in months, sometimes years. The virus spreads silently through a population before a single human case alerts the surveillance system to its presence. CSIRO has noted that one reason Australia may have no recorded human hantavirus cases is simply lack of diagnosis, and that an Australian strain may already be causing illness, mild, feverish, and misattributed to other causes in people who never knew what they had. Viruses mutate. RNA viruses, of which hantavirus is one, mutate under the pressure of new host environments. But hantaviruses do something more specific than simple mutation. Because their genome is segmented, divided into 3 separate RNA segments, hantaviruses are capable of genetic reassortment, a process in which 2 different hantaviruses infecting the same cell can exchange genome segments to create an entirely new virus, genetically distinct from both parents. This is documented, confirmed in peer-reviewed literature, and observed in multiple hantavirus species across multiple continents. Reassortment between more distantly related viruses is rarer, but scientific literature confirms it plays a specific role in host switching, the moment when a virus crosses from one species into another. Australia already has a silent hantavirus strain present in its rodent population, and the Andes virus potentially may have arrived in the same country. Documented science confirms that if both viruses were to co-infect the same cell in the same animal, the result would not be the Andes virus, and it would not be the Australian strain. It would be something new, something without a name, something with the Andes virus's human-to-human transmission capability, combined with characteristics adapted to Australian hosts, something for which no treatment exists and no surveillance system is currently looking. No one in authority has publicly connected these 2 events. The plague, the quarantine, the facility, the landscape, the flying foxes, the native species, the silent ecosystem beneath the soil. The questions exist in the public record. The answers do not. We would not necessarily know until a farmer gets sick, somewhere in the wheat belt, months from now or years, with a fever they cannot shake. Dust devils, The willy-willy swirls and carries dust into the sky, and the thirstier my topsoil is, the better dust will fly. That is where the devil lives, the one who steals away. The beating from the living and the lifeblood from the clay. That's the gold that feeds the beast beneath the sunlit glow. I offer to all willingly, terrain for food to grow. Many generations have walked upon my skin. Though unforgiving, I still bleed when evil wanders in. I've watched 1,000,000 foreign stars from other worlds collide. I felt the water eat away, eroding at my hide. The heat that I've endured has often scorched my back, and I've lost count of all the fire that burned my body black. And yet, without these scars, I'd have no history to show. A lackluster diversity, no rarity to grow. Through constant readjustment, genes morphed and shift and split. For evolution spawns from a necessity to fit. Then, on 2 legs, a kindred formed. They loved me like their own. I raised them like my children. They claimed me as their home. My spirit in their stories, in their dance, and in their art. Until the tall ships brought a tribe so many miles apart. Foreign grain and foreign beasts, not native to this place. And very soon, and to this day, left scars upon my face. Invasive species taking what they had no right to steal, and slowly taking over, as time would soon reveal. But resources are finite. Some jewels cannot be shared. So reckless in their actions showed of me they never cared. For they knew not my power, and I cast down my wrath. But still they took and took of me, while forging deep their path. My kindred who protected me, they also suffered too. And so much time has aged since then, and lessons still to do. For though I sought to teach them, my guidance pushed aside. A branch cast out in friendship, constantly denied. A little dust has settled since the generations past. Yet I know not how much longer, till my days shall be my last. My weather now is broken, pollution fills the air. Much water filled with chemicals and plastic everywhere. My temperature is rising, my coral under threat. And algae chokes the oceans and the rivers I regret. But still, I give them sustenance, though care for me seems lost. Tomorrow soon is coming and arriving at a cost. A wealth of poor decisions, and this could be the worst. For this could leave their livelihood and their survival cursed. The very grain the tall ships carried also brought the mice. A perfect tempest waiting to destroy my paradise. Against it, I am helpless, as my children will be too. So many species victims soon, if this is what they do. The cyclone season weakened me, and pestilence took hold. And foreign vermin in their billions cannot be controlled. No walls or doors or boundaries, no course to make them stop. So numerous that poison is the last defense we've got. But as they fall and waste away, as every carcass must, unfortunately in this case, their bodies turn to dust, and the willy-willy swirls and carries dust into the sky. And the thirstier my topsoil is, the better dust will fly. For that is where the devil lives, the one who steals away. The beating from the living and the lifeblood from the clay. Written with respect for the Ballardong and Noongar peoples on whose country these events are unfolding.